Welcome to Nomadic Diaries. My name is Doreen Cumberford, the host, and I would love you to meet my fabulous co-host, Megan Norton Newbanks.
Hi, Doreen. You are the fabulous one with this podcast platform and initiating the Belonging Project series.
Well, thank you. I could never have done it without such a steady compass and such a steady companion, and it's been an absolute joy. Now, this is going to be the beginning of the Belonging Bites series. And the reason that we're calling these Belonging Bites is because it's such a big topic. Belonging. It's a combination of being and longing, and it's a very human topic, and we all want to belong. And so today we're going to be discussing the subject of holidays or rituals, and hopefully this will help you sink your teeth into what it really means to belong.
Absolutely, Doreen. I couldn't agree more. And um, one thing about belonging, it involves holidays, social rituals, customs. And I'd like to start off by saying I love the holiday Christmas. For me and my family, it's super significant because it also is the month that holds two of our birthdays. In our family, my birthday and my dad's birthday. And so it's a season full of joy, hope, celebration, and also we always have this one Christmas tree that we have all these different ornaments up from different places we've lived, and so it's also a time of reflection of where we've been and then also where we're going in the new year. So that's something I really wanted to share about a sense of belonging to my family and to my story that comes up for me when I think about holidays and belonging. What about you?
Um, I actually have the same. We have what I call the storytelling tree, and it's the story of our lives. It's the story of the places we lived, and it's told in the form of ornaments. It's got baubles from Yemen and Saudi Arabia. It has strange little prayers, that omaris that we got in Japan, that we tie on the branches, and everywhere in between. And so it tells the story of who we've belonged to, where we've belonged, and other customs that we've belonged to, not just the ones that are from our own inherited cultures.
Wow, I couldn't believe that you said the same thing, that you and your family celebrate also. And I'm just wondering how many of our listeners too have a storytelling tree around the end of the year. Yeah, I'm
I bet
wondering.
it's I bet it's more common than we know. And
Yes.
and it's something that I think we need to talk, because I think there's so many different ways of telling the story that the storytelling tree is definitely significant and super sweet. But I have to tell you, the next question was, have you ever felt excluded or especially included during a holiday ritual? And I have to tell you that before we left the United States to move to Mexico, I bought this scrawny little, well, it's about 8 feet tall, black Christmas tree from a neighbor for $10. And I thought, what the heck am I going to do with this? And what I do with it, for now I'm living in Mexico, for the Day of the Dead, I drag out this tree and I decorate it with skulls, with the paper ornaments that are here. We hang things like marigolds, which are the flower that we use to celebrate Day of the Dead. And we even sort of use it as sort of an ofrenda, which is a type of altar that people put up in their house to tell the stories of their beloveds who have passed on.
I love that. I love the adaptation of
Yeah.
and the creativity. One year I remember I wasn't going to buy a Christmas tree. I was living overseas as a solo expat. And what I did is created a book tree and arranged the books in some foundational, like almost, well, cone shape manner. And then I had ornaments on the sides. And that was my Christmas tree. So we adapt to our
We do.
circumstances.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of having a book tree. Yeah, especially made up of all the words. So that helped me sort of cross Christmas, and that tree stays up until close to Christmas, and then we take it down, and then we put up different trees. So I did that because I felt very excluded and separated um, from the Mexican traditions around Day of the Dead and dying. And that helped me behave and belong to not only that time of year and that celebration, but to part of this culture.
That's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt very foreign and I felt very excluded and I felt very strange. And so that was very helpful. Can you come up with an idea of a time that you felt included during a holiday or ritual?
Well, definitely included when, in different communities, there's been this openness to share what are ways that you celebrate a tradition? What are the ways that are important to you as a family? And I think that is an important space to have when you're talking about belonging, because then people understand then
Yeah.
why do you bake this certain
Yes.
type of food during this time? And then sometimes I question, like why do we have this type of food at Christmas? Where does that come from? So I think it's a way also for families to ask then their older generation of where does this come from? It really goes back to family values.
And it does go back to family values and it goes back to beyond the family values, it also goes back to ancestral traditions. Here in Mexico, we find that we're on Chichimeca and Otomi land, as I say frequently, and there is an interesting form of religious Catholicism mixed with ancient indigenous traditions. I call it voodoo Catholicism sometimes because a Mexican friend of mine said that's what his mother practiced. And I understand that because you can go out in the campo and find little tiny mini chapels where the directions are on the wall, where they'll go pray before they go to mass.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
and so it's not this or this, it's a question of this and I think it's really important to learn about these traditions and why they are the way they are because it was not evident just looking. You have to really dig into it and that has built a better sense of belonging
Mm,
for
yeah.
me.
Mm,
And also
right.
across all these generations, all these older people can tell stories and then that's passed down and the people in the campo are now telling the expats in town those stories.
Yes, yes. I mean, you're speaking into meaning making, and
Exactly.
from an outsider or somebody who's just entered a community, we can maybe have judgments or assumptions for why someone practices a tradition the way they do. But it is those conversations and research to understand what is the meaning attached to that custom.
Yeah, why is it significant to this person? And for many, maybe for decades they practice something, and so it's very natural. One of the other things they do is posadas here, but we'll talk about that later. And th there's just so many ways of building a very meaningful life. I think in every culture, probably, I'm sure every culture has a meaning making process. And as foreigners or outsiders, it really requires sometimes some patience and some imagination as to how to even ask the right questions.
Mhm. And I think you do such a wonderful job, Doreen, of asking questions in your community. In all of these series episodes, it's clear that you've just gone into the deep end of immersing yourself into your local culture, your new culture. You and Mr. John are still new, and I would say even transitioning into becoming really parts of the community. So, and now you're sharing in the customs, you're sharing in the traditions, and
Yeah.
you're speaking into how that's fostering a sense of belonging.
Yes, thank you. And so, does this participation in another culture's celebrations, how do you think? I'm real curious, Megan, as to how you think about the way that enhances inclusion and a mutual understanding of each other.
Mm. I've been thinking about this question, and I think it depends on our capacity
Mm,
to to
mm,
be available, our capacity to take in more information, and our willingness to get involved. So uh, I think that's a very non-answer, but I think if the intentionality is to share in an experience, it does break down stereotypes. It does build empathy. It helps to appreciate the meaning behind what you're experiencing. So I would say showing up with an openness is enough to feel that you're included. It's enough to feel like you are a valued part of what's happening.
sure. Well, I love what you said about having the capacity and the willingness. What would you say to our listeners today on the topic of making ourselves available to strange or foreign holidays or rituals?
I would say mark it on your calendar. Know when a certain holiday, a tradition is coming up, so you have that timeline in mind. And then who is the cultural mentor, or I also like to use the word cultural broker in your community, who you go to ask. Okay, what will I be saying in the grocery store that relates to this holiday, or what can I decorate outside my house to celebrate this holiday? We're recording this, in a ramp up here in the US to three major um, big expressions of holidays: Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And so in the grocery store or any supermarket or any home decor store, you're going to see three different holidays and
Yes.
aisles. And the consumerism is a lot here in the US, but it's really fun, I think, here in the US to see the changeover of how people display in their yards, on their doors, the holidays that are celebrated.
Yeah. And we're also recording this on the eve, interestingly enough, of Mexican Independence Day. And the streets are festooned with Mexican flags. People are driving around in pickup trucks and they have these plastic covers of the Mexican flag across the hood or the bonnet of their trucks and their cars. Every taxi has got a Mexican flag hanging off of it. I noticed today somewhere at the grocery store this morning, I had to go get some medicine, and the fellow who gives you your grocery cart had on a great big traditional Mexican hat, which big sombrero, which you see, but not frequently. And so that brings so much more liveliness and when we can come together as communities, that builds belonging. And so this is just
I
the
love
first
that.
bite at a belonging bite.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because now this gives me an opportunity to tell two of my newest family members Happy Independence Day. One who has just married my uncle, and one who is marrying my cousin in 2 weeks. And that reminds me that yes, like embrace and research and remember how to celebrate holidays and recognize that people in our lives are going to be celebrating different things, different times of the year. And so that's another way to cultivate belonging in our communities that are not local with us.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, for today, I think this is our belonging bite on the subject of holidays and social rituals. Do you have anything to add, Megan?
I would say inclusively happy holidays.
Absolutely. Happy celebration wherever you are, whenever you are, because we're just so grateful to have this life and be a part of the circle of belonging. Sayonara, masalama, and hasta luego.